So you've just finished maybe your first couple of semesters of beginning Greek. Maybe you're ready to move on and you've got a summer break and you're wondering, what should I do with my summer break? Well, in this video, I'm going to give you the 5 books that I think that every person who's just finished beginning Greek should read after they've finished beginning Greek. In this video, I want to introduce you to the 5 books that I think will make a big difference to you as you move from beginning Greek into intermediate Greek, and will help you to really start to think of Greek as a long-term exercise that will be a huge blessing to you, not just over the summer, but even beyond that as well. Before we start though, I just want to give a shout out to our sponsor for this video, and that is Logos Bible Software. I love Logos Bible Software. I've been using it since about 1999. I have a bunch of resources in it and use it every day. In fact, I've got a video just up here talking about one of the key ways that I use Logos Bible Software that I want to introduce you to. But thank you to Logos for sponsoring this video. Let's get into it, and I want to introduce you to the 5 books that I think are going to make a huge difference once you've finished beginning Greek. Now, why is this so important? Well, when you start with beginning Greek, you learn really the morphology of biblical Greek, and that's rightly so. You really understand how to parse words, how to sort of understand how they work together to some extent, but you really got a lot of work left to do to take your Greek to the next level. You're at the beginning stages. Okay, you've finished beginning Greek, but you're still very early. And so nobody who has finished beginning Greek should really be able to say, I know Greek, because really at this stage, you're taking off the training wheels. And so these 5 books are designed to help you go further without those training wheels, so to speak, so that you can start to understand some of the discussions, how we got to where we got to, why there are so many opinions in the biblical Greek world, and so you can start to work through some of those things for yourself. The thing is that there's going to be some things you learnt in biblical Greek that are really helpful, and you want to just camp on those and deepen your knowledge of those a little bit more. There are going to be some things you learnt through beginning Greek that you're going to want to look at again to find out in more detail, what does it actually mean? And there are going to be some things in beginning Greek that you're just going to want to say, you know what, that's actually totally needs revising, and I need to come to grips with that in a way that makes more sense. So this is what these 5 books will help you do. Start to get your head around some of these key elements from beginning Greek all the way through into intermediate Greek, and will put you in good standing for really growing in your knowledge of Greek. And the first book I want to recommend to you is this one, Greek for Life by Dr. Benjamin Merkle and Rob Plummer. Now, I've talked about this book on this channel in the past because it really is one of those books that is just so important, so helpful for you to read and get your head around. Because Greek is not merely something you do for 2 semesters and then say, yeah, I know biblical Greek. Greek is something that you need to do for life, because biblical Greek is a way to understand the New Testament in ways that are simply not possible without knowledge of the biblical languages. And this book is a wonderful and easy to read primer that's going to get you motivated and give you some tips and tricks to make what you've learned into something that will maintain you and keep you growing in your knowledge of Christ throughout the rest of your life. This book is going to take your mindset from a semester by semester mindset to a lifestyle mindset where you really do know Greek and read the original languages because you want to know the word. It's going to provide you with tools and advice that are going to take you beyond the classroom into your own devotional life, into everyday living, so that you can read it, benefit from it for your own soul, and really be a blessing to other people because of your knowledge of the original languages. Now, this book is peppered throughout with quotes and with anecdotes, and this makes this not only really helpful, but also highly motivational. And because of this, it's also very, very easy to read. So this is Greek for Life by Merkle, Dr. Merkle and Dr. Plummer. Go get a copy of this today. If you take nothing else from this video, this one book should be the next book on your reading list. And if you haven't read this yet, make a point of putting this in your to-read list in the very near future. The second book I want to commend to you as you go from beginning Greek to intermediate Greek, and as you go beyond beginning Greek, is this one by Dr. Constantine Campbell, Advances in the Study of Greek. The reason why is that when you're going through beginning Greek, you're really just coming to grips with the language. You're not really getting any sort of up-to-date analysis or discussion of the scholarly discussion that's going on in the broader world. And so Advances in the Study of Greek is one of those books that is going to help you to really come to grips with the broader discussions that are going on inside the world of scholarly Greek. You're going to understand some of the key issues that are there, such as why deponency is not a thing in the scholarly world anymore. And you may come from a Greek grammar that says this is a deponent verb and teaches you deponency. And so books like this are going to help you to understand why many grammars now are putting deponency aside. The same goes for things like verbal aspect. Some of the older grammars and grammars that come out of the older tradition, such as Summers and some of these other ones, don't have a highly nuanced view of verbal aspect. And so a book like this is going to provide you with some of those key elements to help you to see the history of different scholars, different grammars, and why what they've written about verbal aspect or deponency or even discourse grammar, how we got to the point we got to today, why some grammarians are not including this in their grammars and why some are including it in their grammars. And so you'll get to see some of these things as you go through a book like this. It's also going to talk about things like discourse analysis, which you wouldn't have been introduced to very likely in the first 2 semesters of beginning Greek. And what this book does is it gives you just a short introduction to what on earth each of these things actually is, and then a short history, how we got to the point, who the key players are in the discussion, how they're talking to one another and working from each other's work and coming together to sort of try and move our knowledge of the language forward significantly. The other thing this is going to do is it's going to give you the tools you need to start to make some informed decisions for yourself about how the language is working. You're going to know areas that now you need to go work on that are really going to help you take the knowledge that you took in beginning Greek and move it into a more advanced stage. And also, it's got a great bibliography. So this is going to give you plenty of other books that you can read and work from as well. But you really need to read this after you've finished beginning Greek. Now, if you're getting any value from this so far, let me encourage you to hit that like button to tell YouTube and let me know that you're finding this helpful as well. And that really helps me out a lot. A third book you really need to read once you've finished beginning Greek is also by Dr. Constantine Campbell, and that's this book, Basics of Verbal Aspect. Now, verbal aspect is one of those things you're going to come across in this book, but yet this is just going to introduce you to it. One of the things I love about the Basics of Verbal Aspect is that it really is going to break this whole subject down. It's going to give you a little bit of that history again, so because you've done advances, you can move into this book with a little bit of background knowledge already behind you, which means that this book will be much easier to read, because coming to the basics of verbal aspect from beginning Greek is kind of a little bit daunting. But if you've already read the advances first, then that means you've got a basic grounding, you kind of know what you're in for, and then when it comes to this, you're ready to dig in. And that's exactly what the basics of verbal aspect is great for. It's going to give you a highly nuanced understanding of verbal aspect, what it is, how it works, and give you many examples and discussion points about each of the different verbal forms inside the New Testament, how we should understand that, the concepts of proximity and remoteness, which honestly even some of the best grammars don't do an adequate job of covering. And so these things are all part of this grammar. And honestly, if you're going to go further and begin to read Biblical Greek, this book is going to transform your knowledge of the language and transform your reading of the language as you read through the New Testament as well. So this is highly recommended. I really strongly encourage you, once you've finished advances in the study of Greek, to get this book and then work your way through it. Take a little bit of time. Don't rush it. And if you're interested in more about this book, I actually did a review of this last year, and you can find a link to that review up here as well. Now, if you're getting any value from this so far, let me encourage you to hit that like button to tell YouTube and let me know that you're finding this helpful as well. And before I go on to the next 2 books, let me also just encourage you, do you have a book that you read after your first year of beginning Greek, or even just that you've read recently, that you think, hey, this would be a great book, everybody looking at reading Biblical Greek should read it? If so, leave it in the comment section below. I look forward to taking a look at it and reading it as well. But let's get on to the next 2. The 4th book I want to encourage you to read is actually a hermeneutics book, and that's this one, The Hermeneutics of the Biblical Writers by Emig. Now, this is another book that I have looked at in the past and I have reviewed on this channel. You'll find a review, a link to the review up here. Now, this one is not really for somebody who's been learning Greek on their own. I'm really assuming here that before you come to this, you've already read at least one book on hermeneutics. be it Roy Zuck, be it Duval and Hayes, whatever it is, one of those other standard works on hermeneutics, you should read one of those first. So I'm assuming you've kind of already done that. And if so, this book is going to really be a great blessing to you. And the reason for that is that most of the hermeneutics books out there are written by scholars who really don't have the depth of knowledge in the original languages that someone like an Abner Chou does. Now, Dr. Chou actually reads and teaches from the Greek New Testament and the Hebrew Old Testament, including the Aramaic of the Old Testament as well. So when he writes this book, he's coming to the subject of hermeneutics as somebody who reads the original languages. And so that makes this book really valuable for somebody who's wanting to read the New Testament in the original languages, having learned biblical Greek. So you're going to see how he treats some of the quotes of the Old Testament quotes in the New Testament a little differently to some of the other books that are out there. Not in isolation from them. He's quoting heavily from the Carsons and Beals of the world and places like that. But he really leans on them and then expands their thinking significantly, but also I think simplifies the subject of hermeneutics in a way that is helpful for somebody who's reading in the original languages. So, The Hermeneutics of the Biblical Writers by Abner Chou. Finally, I want to encourage you, the last book is this one, Intermediate Greek Grammar by Mathewson and Emig. Now, David Mathewson is a respected scholar, and this is a fantastic book to introduce you to the syntax of the Greek New Testament. And what sets this apart from something like, say, Wallace, is that it is shorter to start with and simplifies the language. And again, I think, the focus in this is not on exegesis, which is really the focus in Wallace's Greek Grammar Beyond the Basics. In the Intermediate Greek Grammar, this takes more of a nuanced view. So it takes into account things like verbal aspect. It has a good and a nuanced understanding of verbal aspect. It has a good understanding of discourse grammar. It has a good understanding of how even discourse grammar affects things like participles, greatly simplifying how you understand these elements of biblical Greek. And this means that when you read through this, not only are you going to come away with a much more nuanced understanding of how the language works, you're also going to come away taking into account many of the things that we've read through some of these other books. And so this is a very good accompaniment, follow-on book for those other ones as well. Now the thing is that going through the beginning Greek phase, you're only going to be really learning morphology, and then things like a partitive genitive and a genitive absolute, and how the circumstantial participle and things like that are really going to seem foreign for you and are going to fly over the head of many beginning Greek students. This book helps those things to be really bedded in and helps you to understand them in a way that is far more natural, I think, than some of the other alternatives that are out there. And so this is really up to date. It takes into account many of the current scholarly trends, and it means that really the language is simplified for you as somebody coming out of beginning Greek and really wanting to dig into how to read biblical Greek. And I'm assuming a little bit that that's what you want to do. So those are my 5 books. What did you think of those books? I want to encourage you, if you've gotten value out of this video, hit the like button. That really helps me out a lot. And also give me your feedback. Have you read any of these books? What did you think of them? Were they helpful? Were they not? Leave a comment in the comment section below and let me know. And likewise, if you've got another book that you think would be really helpful, I'd love to hear about that in the comment section below as well. And I'll leave a link to each of these books in the description below so you can go ahead and grab a copy of those for yourself. But again, thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you also to Logos Bible Software for sponsoring this video. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, keep taking small, consistent steps toward mastery. And I look forward to seeing you then. See you later.